Hey Danny, how you doing, man?
Hello, Lewis. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Excellent.
I've got some news for you.
Oh, what?
We're at war with East Asia, and we always have been.
Yeah. Of course we have. if you didn't get that hilarious joke, we're doing 1984 this week.
I mean, you say that, but first of all, we do have to have the 10-minute bullshit, which is protected by the same rights as the Queen's speech.
That's true. That's in our constitution.
The shouting into the void constitution.
Yep.
We have a flag. We have a constitution.
We do. We don't have a head of state because fuck the government. No.
We are anarchists through and through.
We've got a disclaimer to make, though, haven't we?
We do a bit, yeah.
Yep. This is going to be... We don't know to what degree yet, but I tend to get very heated about this. So we're warning you now, it is going to be a political episode today. And you know what I'm like? You know, I'm always telling Lewis off for railing against capitalism, but it is going to be a political episode today. So if that doesn't suit you, then just switch off and join us next week when we talk about something else.
Or, actually do have a listen, because it would help our listener numbers quite dramatically.
yeah, obviously, we want you to listen, but,
What we're trying to say is we're going to be talking about politics. We're probably not going to be launching into, like, the Labour manifesto or anything, but we're going to be talking about political ideas and things like that.
Yeah. Why communism is good. No.
Why communism would be good for the betterment of society in a modern Britain.
Fuck's sake.
So anyway, how are things in Glasgow? We need to fill up the 10-minute bullshit with something, Danny. Come on, we can't launch into political rhetoric yet.
Well, I mean, Glasgow's fine, but I've got a sort of a bullshit wheel.
Ah, okay, yeah.
So I'm going to give it a spin, right?
Very impressive, Danny.
Okay, let's see what we've got.
That's some good wheel action.
Papers.
Papers? The newspapers?
Well, the reason...
the Panama Papers?
Yeah, I wrote down papers because I want to tell you a story, Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? When I was younger, I tended not to ask for toys at Christmas.
Right. Why do I feel like this is already a lie?
It's not a lie, I'm telling you.
Okay.
It's so. So I didn't normally ask for toys when I was younger. What I would normally ask for is a roll of kitchen roll.
Right.
And sellotape.
Of course you would. Why wouldn't you ask for those things?
And what I would do is I would rip up the kitchen roll, and what you can do is that if you get the kitchen roll, you'll find a sort of like an edge of it that sort of splits it and makes it looser, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Like, because it's like one thick bit, and then you split it, and it becomes two bits.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
I think I do, yeah.
Right, and what I would do is I would take them apart and have like strips, and then let's sellotape like 2 or 3 of them together, and that's what I would use as a toy instead.
And if you're worried this episode's going to get too political for you folks,
yeah, I mean, that is true.
That is true. I don't understand the moral of that story. You used to tape together 2 or 3 bits of kitchen paper and then use it as a toy,
and then just sort of go around the living room and my room, just going and just sort of imagining whatever I needed to imagine with them.
Right. I can't help but feel that you could have just asked for an Action Man or something.
Yeah, but it was so much cheaper. And
I imagine it was, to be fair.
And I used to take them outside, and I used to I liked seeing them sort of flap in the wind.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So that's...
Plus, if you spill any orange juice, you can mop them up with your new toy.
See if one ever broke, I would get really upset. like really upset.
Can you just make another one?
Yeah, but it's Lewis. For fuck's sake, it's like creating a life.
Right.
It's like this paper. That's what they were called, papers.
Okay.
Like, that's what my mum called them. Oh, have you get your paper there, son? It's like I've breathed life into something, Lewis. And once it goes, yeah, you can make another one. Yeah, there's another human out there. But the person that you had, the person that you were with, is now gone. So maybe you shouldn't be such a trivial bastard and maybe accept that losing someone is pretty fucking sad.
Yes, I'm aware that death is sad, then.
Jesus Christ!
So you're telling me you don't subscribe to the Job method of economical children?
No, I don't just say, oh well, there's one kid dead, fuck it, I've got two more.
Good. Is that really true?
What?
The kitchen paper thing?
Yeah!
No, I can understand it's true, but the
do you know what I'll do? See for those that are listening that's going to Patreon, I'll put a couple of pictures of me or of the papers on there, and you can have a look at what they look like if you're finding it hard to imagine.
Please do that, because I'm struggling to imagine as well.
It is true. I'm telling you.
I'm sure it is. It's also just bizarre.
It is bizarre. It is a strange one, but it was, it kept me happy.
When I was a kid, instead of tearing up kitchen paper, I used to go to a shelf in the kitchen and rip pages out of my mother's recipe books.
And what did you do with them?
Just threw them on the floor. I guess I was kind of a disruptive child. There's a picture of me as a baby. I can't have been more than 18 months old or something. And I'm sat on the floor, laughing my face off, tearing pages out of this recipe book.
Oh my god. You fucking...
The thing is, I would never do that nowadays. It's like people who disrespect books. Like, it's one of the things I hate the most. Like, you go into a bookshop, you pick up a book, and the cover is torn or creased, or anything. Oh, you dick! It's like, I genuinely hate it. So the thought of as a child was ripping pages out of books.
Yeah, I hate it as well. See when the spine is like sort of bent.
Yeah.
I had it open for years.
I don't mind that so much, because I think that's kind of unavoidable to some extent. Like, if you read a book over 500 pages.
Ridiculously. Ridiculously.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's fucking falling off.
Where you can lay it flat.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I mean, well, we all had our.
Our strange things we did as children.
Yeah. But it was good fun.
I'm sure it was. Yeah.
It was great. It was great fun. I was just completely content.
That's good to hear.
But I had to my dad didn't like them after a while.
Okay.
And basically banned me from using them.
So have you got rolls of kitchen paper and sellotape that are just never going to get used?
Yeah.
Good God.
I hide up the stairs.
Hide in your bedroom making papers and throw them around. Oh, good stuff.
He caught me playing with one time when we were in the car, and I was hiding it, and he said, "What's that?" And then he took it off me, rolled down the window, and threw it out.
Why did he hate them so much? It surely can't have been that disruptive.
I think it was because it was like my child is ripping up bits of kitchen roll and sellotaping them together. This is fucking weird.
I see. And then the next day he went outside to find you having killed a cat. That's the one, right?
My happiness is forfeited because he found it a bit weird. I don't want to turn this into some sort of Dr. Phil episode.
And how did that make you feel, Danny?
Yeah, still pretty torn up about it.
Hey!
I don't want any misconceptions to be made. I didn't give them names or anything like that. I didn't, No,
trust me, Danny. You giving them names would be normal in this situation. I would presume you had named them.
No, I didn't name them because they were more of a sort of conduit for imagination, if you know what I mean.
I see. Because I can imagine you folding bits of paper up and making paper aeroplanes and stuff. Is that the kind of stuff you did?
No. I mean, No, they were. It's like long, strandy, floaty bits
Right.
of paper that you sort of wiggle around, and you can imagine whatever you want through them. Like it wasn't like one person, if you know what I mean. It was like I wiggled them around, and maybe I was imagining like two armies clashing.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I don't really know how it worked, but that's basically what I did.
Okay. Well, that's
maybe
good to know.
Maybe from an outside perspective, it would have looked a bit strange. Me just running around going.
Oh God.
No, but I'll send some pictures in to the Patreon.
Yeah.
And if you pay £5 a month, you can see me making fucking bits of kitchen all float around.
Oh God. So you want it open to exclusively top patrons?
Yeah, I'll teach you how to make them. A paper making class. I'll teach you how to make them.
If you make one at home, take a picture, send it to one of us on social media, or email it to shoutingintothevoidcontact@gmail.com.
Yep.
And then we'll go, my God.
Yeah, what do they get?
What do they get?
We just sort of go, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's the one. We'll put you on a priority list of cool people.
Yep. I wish we had stuff to give out, but we don't, okay?
We'll put some t-shirts on Teespring, and you'll go, oh, yeah, 20 quid for a t-shirt. Oh.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. No, seriously, send them in.
No, yeah, genuinely do. That would be if somebody does make them, that would be brilliant.
And I'll decide the best one, and we'll see what we can do for you.
Yeah, well, if you decide the best one, give you a shout out in the next episode.
Yeah.
Everybody go follow Bill Gates. He sent one in. Everybody go follow Bill Gates on Instagram.
Bill Gates sent one
at Windows.
Oh right, it's made of fucking titanium.
Bill Gates mops up kitchen spills with titanium in his house. Bill Gates has his gold leaf that he mops up juice with.
I would never use them to mop up stuff, Lewis.
No, I know, but I'd use kitchen paper to mop stuff up.
That would be killing them. That would be some sort of god using you to mop up lava. Like just picking you up and just mopping you across the floor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, I understand. No, don't get me wrong, I understand. It's just, yeah, it's a strange comparison to... Were they anthropomorphized, these papers? Did you consider them to be, like, have a personality?
It depends.
On what?
It depends on the situation.
Right.
Because I had like sort of phases. Like, I would be interested in, like, Doctor Who one week.
Okay.
And then maybe the next week I was interested in Star Wars. So it wasn't... They changed with what I was interested in.
I see.
So maybe I was pretending that a giant spaceship had fucking crashed in somewhere. Or there was a battle taking place. It really just depended on what I was interested in at the time.
I see. Well, good stuff.
Yeah. Try not to make me sound like a fucking freak, Lewis. Just backing away from the keyboard. Okay.
We're just going to leave that one be. No, we don't have time to unpack all of that. Next. Anyway, what are we talking about today, Dan? Today we're talking about the book 1984, which I believe was released in 1949.
That is correct.
Which, I mean, it would have been slightly better if it was written in 1948.
Yes, it would have.
But, written by George Orwell.
Yes, a great man.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think he's vaguely problematic.
No, he didn't. He just made papers when he was younger, Lewis. Jesus Christ. You know what I mean?
He had, that George Orwell was a pen name.
Yes, I can't remember his real name.
Eric Arthur Blair.
Yes, that sounds familiar. I've got the book here, actually. You're right.
Yeah, I've got my copy is downstairs, actually, but yeah.
Yep. He was born in India, which is a lovely place. Yep. Mm. Have you got an opening statement?
I do. Give me 1 second to locate it, because I'm looking at the Google search for 1984. That's how I do my research for this podcast, folks. I do it on the fly while we record. A stunning look into a totalitarian Britain where a truly horrifying future unfolds. I saw this thing that I found quite interesting that I wanted to mention. That was at the time the book was written, it was less about like as if you read it nowadays and you'll think, oh, Amazon is watching us, just like how Big Brother is, or whatever. That's like some of the stuff you take away. But at the time, it was almost a absurd novel, like where totalitarian states had only ever happened in like places so different to it that the public considered so different to England. So looking at this book, it was like, I imagine if that happened in England. And George Orwell went, yes, imagine if that did happen in England. And then he wrote it, and that's what we've got. And I just think that's an interesting look at it.
That is an interesting look at it. It was very unpopular as well.
Was it?
Yeah, for the first couple of years.
Mm.
A dark and bleak flat-out warning on the dangers of collectivism and political authoritarianism. A terrifying, nightmarish dystopia that depicts the death of the self, the individual, the human instincts, and all notions and attempts to keep the fragile concept of freedom beating. A non-partisan study of the ugly obsession of power and control.
Good stuff.
Yeah. So, creepy room questions.
Go on, hit me.
Are the three super states in cahoots?
To be completely honest, to some extent, I don't even believe they exist.
Oh.
When I read the book, I thought, given that the Big Brother and the party lie to the proles and the inner party and the outer party about everything, why would they start telling the truth about this one thing? The thing I always took away from it was that these places didn't exist, or the rest of the world was functioning normally, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah. But that these places didn't exist, and that the party was dropping bombs on its own citizens. Yeah, so we're at war to keep people scared, to keep people loyal.
Yeah, I definitely thought that they dropped bombs on each other. But I found it quite interesting that the equatorial front, where the fighting takes place between these three countries, it's almost like the world in which the book takes place is almost like a giant sort of engine. It's like the waste and the economic build-up just gets sent to the equatorial front. And it's like war is the way that the world works, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
They all have nukes and could probably destroy each other, but it would upset the balance. So each state sort of leaves its territory alone, but just sends all of its waste to the equatorial front to be destroyed. I thought like just three big sort of engines, funneling their shite into this place. I thought that was basically how it worked.
Which I thought was quite an interesting view of... It's like that bit where he's reading the textbook. He's stood in that room above the shop, and he's literally reading aloud from a textbook, which is, the most difficult part of the novel to read, because it is literally a bloke dictating from a textbook for about 20 pages. And it's like, fucking hell! It's hard to get through. But it is kind of interesting and on the same level. Like, he talks about things like the equatorial front, is that what he calls it? It will always be at war. That's like the nature of our society, is that place will always be at war, and everywhere else will always be prospering. And that's an interesting parallel to what we have in the real world, is that region of the world, in our world, is in a lot of war quite consistently.
Yes.
And everywhere else is pretty much fine.
It's almost because the people of Oceania, they don't believe that they're oppressed. They don't believe that they're tyrannized by this state.
Sure.
They believe that they have freedom. So, and for the most part, I think that most people in Britain believe that they have freedom as well.
Are you about to tell me I've been 1984 without even realising it?
Well, I don't think it's to the same extent. Well, maybe it's even worse than 1984 because there are cameras.
If you read this book...
I know, but there are cameras everywhere. It's not,
That's true. I know what you mean.
I can't remember who said it, but it's like they said real tyranny isn't going to be like sort of gulags and death camps. It's going to be in a place where you think that you're free, where in fact that you're actually controlled by those above you. So it's perfectly plausible that all this is part of the grand plan. That we think that we're free, but really have no freedom at all.
I see. I think that's where you start getting into sort of moral philosophy type grounds almost. I mean, yes, conspiracy theories, but also a moral philosophy type thing of you're only ever as free as you sort of want to be. Do you know what I mean? Even they can't get inside your head. And I think, like you mentioned in your opening statement, this is a bleak look at a totalitarian society. But even to that point, Winston makes the point that the only thing that is yours is the few square centimeters inside your skull. Is one of the lines in the book.
Yeah.
And I think that's the positive takeaway from the book. Is that he can go forwards. There will be a popular uprising at some point.
But even that, the party has control over.
Mm.
Like O'Brien. That brings me on to my next question. Is O'Brien right about reality?
How do you mean?
Well, he says that reality is not external; it exists only within the mind, and because the party controls what the past and the present, then they can dictate what reality is.
Sure.
So is reality just in your mind, and there's nothing external, and anyone can control it as long as they've got control of all the information of the past?
Well, yes and no. In the case of, like... The point that he's making, I think, at that point is they control reality because they can change your mind about everything. I think in a world that we live in now, where we are at least quasi-conscious, you can change your mind about things. You can make choices. Even if the choices don't really lead on to much, you can make choices. And I think that's the difference between the freedom that we consider and the freedom that the proles in the book think they have.
Yeah. I mean, the party can say the sky is red. And because the information that they receive is so limited and intelligence is so low and so at just basic level that it's not they don't pretend that the sky is red. They wholeheartedly believe that the sky is red because the party says so. And obviously we don't have that yet. We don't have it where the government can just say yes, the sky's blue or the sky's green or whatever. They can't change things like that yet. But both sides of the political aisle have got their sort of masters that and both sides will believe things about the other, whether they're true or not. Do you know what I mean?
Sure, I do know what you mean.
There's a sort of like because that's their tribe, that's their sort of bias.
That's the issue with the sort of the modern culture of the celebrity politician, is it lends itself to almost tribalism.
Exactly.
Like you see, fights, actual physical fights between, say, this football team from London have had a clash with this football team from Wigan this weekend, and like you see people actually beating each other. And it's that kind of tribalism that humans are so inherently geared towards, just from an evolutionary standpoint of you're more likely to succeed in like caveman times. You're more likely to succeed if you stay with your tribe, if you all hunt deer together, if you all pick for berries together, and so one of you can go, no, that one's point. Do you know what I mean? It's this kind of tribalism that humans buy into so wholeheartedly, which leads to this political tribalism of everything Donald Trump says is right because Donald Trump says it, rather than because the things he says are right, I respect him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, it does lead to death.
Well, everything leads to death, though.
Like throughout history, like tribalism and this form of losing your individual self in these groups, where it's not about who you are anymore. It's about what the group is. You're an extension of the group. You're not an individual. You are the party. You are
an extension of the party.
You are the Nazi party. You are the Communist Party. It's like, and whatever the party is doing, you are in complete agreement with.
And here's something I have always thought about this, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts. Is the sort of the dangers of like retrospective tribalism, in the sense of like you talk about World War II and you say, okay, Germany did this, England did this, Russia did this, the US did this, and it's reverse tribalism because there will be one bloke who shot one other bloke, and they will have names and families and potentially great-grandchildren that are alive today. And thinking about that, doesn't it dehumanize both their actions and both the consequences of their actions?
I would agree.
If they're to say, okay, I'm a German, so therefore I will kill an English soldier, because that's no, you are, I don't know, Hans. I guess that's a German name, and I'm going to kill Rob. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. That is a very different thing to I'm a German going to kill a British soldier. It's bizarre.
Yeah, and like war is so romanticized.
Sure.
To the point where it's just not even funny.
I completely agree. There is a lot of dangers to romanticizing war like that.
Fighting for king and country. There is nothing heroic about war, in my view. I don't see it as some sort of giant crusade to sort of make the world a better place, because it often just doesn't. It just leads to death and ruin, and I think that our country specifically has had this problem for many, many years, where we just sort of go in somewhere, say, yeah, get rid of that guy, and just fucking, that's it, and then we leave, and then it's just, we've just basically wrecked a country, and now we're gone.
I think there is something heroic about people who didn't want to fight in a war and then carried out heroic acts once there. There is something heroic about that, but I think this is, I mean, here we go. I'm like opening myself up to criticism now for the first time ever. But this is one of my issues with things like Remembrance Day. Is we should remember the Sacrifice Day. Oh, Jesus Christ! But like, Jesus! Okay, have you finished having a seizure?
Yes, I have. I'm fine.
But my point is, we should remember like the sacrifice, and we should. But my point is, Remembrance Day should be about, okay, well, yeah, these sacrifices were pointless and meaningless and terrible things, and we shouldn't let them happen again. Not, let's make hero worship figures out of these people that died in these wars. Yes, we respect them and we're thankful for their sacrifice, but we shouldn't then think, yes, because they are heroes, now I want to be a soldier. That doesn't... Yes. That's not a good logical connection in my mind.
Are some fights necessary? Because I believe... I don't like war. I despise war. I think it should be avoided at all costs, but I believe that fighting the Nazis was probably the right thing to do.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's
if we just left them to their own devices, think of how much more ruin they would have caused to so many innocent people. I mean, we were fighting them and they killed millions of innocent people. And if we just left them and said, no, we're not getting involved in war, then just how long would it have been until they're right at the doorstep and then it's too late?
And I think there are fights that need to be fought, and there are experiments that need to be experimented with, even if it might go wrong, it might go badly. I watched this interesting video about the history of America. And at the time, when America was founded, it was almost like a political experiment of, could a nation exist without a monarch? Could that actually work? Because all the big European nations that had existed for centuries and centuries had always had a straight line monarchy from founding date to present date, pretty much.
Definitely.
And so George Washington was the first president of this country and that didn't have a king, and it was an experiment, and it was open to failure, and then it didn't fail, and it went onwards, and now it's this presidential system, which, don't get me wrong, like every political system has its flaws, but considering they introduced this political elected official type system into the rest of the world, and now everybody's adopted it. At the time, they were blazing a new path, and now it's the standard way. There are experiments that need to be experimented with, and there are fights that need to be fought. Like you say, we did. Nazis needed to be fought against. If not by us, then by somebody else. I mean, again, by us. I don't... I don't think any of my grandparents fought in the Second World War. Like, Christ knows, obviously, I wasn't there. But by British soldiers, by Russian soldiers, American soldiers.
Yeah, definitely. My granddad fought in the Second World War. He was an RAF pilot, and as sort of, you know, easily sort of heroic it's made. There was a mission where he was said, if you do this mission, then you go home for Christmas.
Sure.
And it was going behind enemy lines, and he refused to do it, and every man that signed up ended up getting killed.
Crikey.
For it. Do you know what I mean? It's more complicated than war is never going to happen again, and yes, we should go to war at every instance. It's always, as usual, it's a mix of wars or fights need to happen, but we should try everything before we get there.
Precisely, yeah. Because the thing that I was...
In my view.
And I think this is my pacifist dogma coming out now, but I think that the end result of war is you all sit down and talk about it anyway. So why not just spare the millions of lives and start with the talking about it? Like the end of World War II, they all sat down, carved up Europe, and wrote down the Treaty of Versailles, which was obviously flawed. But do you know what I mean?
The first one?
Oh yeah, is that not what I said? Oh, God knows. But
I think, yeah.
But yeah, the First World War, they sat down and wrote the Treaty of Versailles, which was like obviously flawed. But why couldn't they have just done that the first time round and forgone all those millions of lives killed so horrifically in the trenches? Do you know what I mean?
And it was such a... If any war is more futile, or the most futile, it's World War One. What just a colossal waste of human lives. What was it even about?
It was a
Serbian killed the Franz Duke Ferdinand, and then every nation piled on and said, "Oh, don't you threaten my pal! Oh, don't you threaten my pal!" And then it was just, before you know it, just trenches were set up, and millions upon millions were just fucking slaughtered.
And I think this is. I mean, Christ knows I'm not a historian. You did an A-level in history, and I barely got a GCSE. But
I did, yeah. It was on America though.
Oh well, yeah. But I think the Second World War, the First World War, even, it was like there was going to be a war anyway. Everybody in Europe was super unhappy, and then they just used Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination as an excuse, basically. I think that was what it was.
Well, it's part of our nature. There is an insatiable desire for conflict in human beings, and it will happen always. Unless we can get beyond it, it will always happen.
Sure, I think that's the kind of thing that you evolve past, though. Like humans have sort of decided as a culture.
We say that, but we've been around for hundreds of thousands of years. And yet, even with all the advances that we now have, war is still as futile and as fiery as ever.
That's very true. I think as we go forwards, though, the public opinion is more and more, yeah, we probably shouldn't have big, massive world wars anymore. We probably should avoid that if we can.
Yeah.
I think that, don't get me wrong, there are people that are like pro-nuclear deterrent and pro things like that I disagree with. But there probably is... I think a significant portion of the population would say, no, I'm against a third world war if there had to be one for whatever reason.
Yeah. Could Oceania come about in our own world?
Describe Oceania to me in a more thorough sense.
A state that is based on collectivism and INGSOC is doublespeak for English socialism.
Yes, yeah.
But it's not socialism.
No, they quite thoroughly denounce socialism, don't they, in the book?
Yeah, it is socialism, but they hate socialists. So it's like it's state. Everything is controlled by the state, and it's, you know, they talk of revolution, and they talk about the days before the revolution and how they're safeguarding a utopia, which is what, you know, socialists in the 20th century did say. But at the same time they hate socialists, which is, it's more reminiscent of it's a state that's solely interested in power, and it doesn't matter what political label. It's pure, unadulterated authoritarianism.
Yes, it is. It's totalitarianism times a million.
And I think that is a great, like, I think George Orwell made a really good choice not to make it about, oh, this is what happens when you get a right-wing government or a left-wing government and it goes too far. It's like, no, it's purely about power. And O'Brien says that he's talking about how he's, oh yeah, we know what we're doing. Like the old reformers, the Russian communists and the German Nazis, they pretended that there was a utopia on the horizon. We are not interested in that whatsoever. We know that there's not going to be a utopia. We are safeguarding power for its own sake.
Yeah, which is a horrifying notion.
It's just despicable.
Oh yeah, it's to dangle that carrot in front of the entire population of this multi-continent society and sort of say, like, yep, well, there will be good days soon. There will be, I promise. And then you deliberately ensure that there never is.
Yeah. And it's at least the communists and the Nazis believed it. These people just lie.
Yeah.
And just pretend that that's what they're interested in. But it's just, no, we're not. We're interested in power. And we'll do it. And we will do anything to achieve it.
Yeah.
And maintain it. That is just the purest form of evil in my mind.
Oh, definitely. I know exactly what you mean. It's
So could you see a vast superstate solely interested in power coming about in our country, or not country, world?
Yes and no. In that, I think that it's the nature of a lot of these people who end up being career politicians to desire power. Like, there's this sort of old stereotype of somebody who's been to private school and then they graduate with this idea of, like, the world belongs to me. I deserve all of these things around me. Because they've naturally been brought up through privilege, they think, yes, well, I can do anything I want to, and I want to generate power, and I want to maintain power. And they will do anything they can to get that power. But I don't think that anybody is capable. I don't mean capable in terms of their conscience, because people are definitely capable of doing it consciensably. I don't think anybody's conscious of capable of actually making it happen. Yeah. I think there would be at least a few, like if you said to the British police, okay, I want every home in London wiretapped. Do you know what I mean? I think there might be a couple of police officers that went, well, maybe not. Maybe I won't do that, because that sounds like bollocks to me.
Well, I mean, maybe the fact that it's... Because George Orwell, he didn't foresee the rise of the internet and things like that. He's looking at it, and it's pretty advanced from a 1949 point of view.
Yeah.
But, like, maybe it's more... The society that we'll be looking at through our dystopian eyes in the future maybe is more closer to a Brave New World, where it's not collectivism and power that and fear, it's hedonism, where we are so engulfed by pleasure and just so numb to tragedy and problems that we just sort of go along with, well, you just carry on doing what you want, and then the people that have the power continue controlling us with, food and clothes and items and material, and just numbing us.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned Brave New World, because when you sent me a text yesterday mentioning hedonism, and I remember I looked up the definition just to make sure I got it right. I was thinking, well, there isn't really a lot of that in 1984. But yeah, looking at it from a Brave New World perspective, there is a lot of that. And I think that's the danger of people adopting this Rick Sanchez concept of only the simple pleasures matter, nothing else really matters. Is no, the other things do matter, but the point is that in a cruel, unfeeling world, it doesn't matter. That the danger of people saying only my simple pleasures matter is that people will become blind to the police have killed 100 people in North London today for whatever reason. And it's like, oh well, that's horrible. And then in 48 hours, they've forgotten that it ever happened. Yeah. That's the thing that people could become blind to in a horrifically hedonistic society.
Yeah, definitely. You got any questions?
I do. The book is obviously a sort of a scathing criticism of totalitarianism.
Yes.
But what does Orwell propose instead? Do you think, from the book, Orwell proposes a different idea of government that isn't totalitarianism, that he thinks would do better in this world than the party is?
I mean, he doesn't propose it in the book, but Orwell was a democratic socialist, which is a sort of mishmash of you maintain freedom, but you help those that are in need. Which again, as it always is, it's a mix between the two. I mean, it's not really centrism. It's not liberal democratic socialism. It is a left wing idea, but freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of expression are at the forefront of that type of society. And that those are sort of golden rules that Orwell believed were essential to society.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the thing that I think makes democratic socialism quite a left-wing idea is the idea of like a universal healthcare system, or the idea of like you say, helping out disadvantaged people. Those are things that are utterly unconscionable in even a slightly more right-wing view of the world. Those are things that would not get done. Those are things that do not get done in a society. So yeah, it is a left-wing ideology.
Yeah, definitely, because it's a fundamental difference between, the left is about sort of equality and the right is about freedom, and those things will end up clashing eventually, because it's
sure.
The right is all about personal responsibility and make your own way in the world, and the left tends to be, but there are people who can't do that and people that desperately need help, so they should be helped by the government. I mean, it's so for me it always comes down to, no, it's not one side or the other, it's always going to be a mishmash of both.
Yeah, if you're going to have a very left-wing society, it needs to be adulterated by some right-wing ideas. And if you're going to have a very right-wing society, it needs to be adulterated by some left-wing ideas.
You have to be able to take responsibility, but you have to be able to help people that can't help themselves. It's like, they're not, I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think that they can be found in in harmony at some point, and I hope that we get there.
Sure. It's not to do with 1984 so much, but it is to do with like a sort of left-wing viewpoint. In the UK, obviously we have like public libraries where let's be honest, who doesn't know what a public library is? But just for the sake of argument, you go in, request a book, and then you take it out for free for 2 weeks or a week or a month or whatever it is. Do you think that in a world where public libraries were never made a thing, for whatever reason, if the ancient Greeks had never generated them, or whatever reason they're here today, do you think that would be a very left-wing idea that people in like political rallies and stuff presented, saying we should have public libraries, knowledge should be free to everybody?
I don't know if it's a left-wing idea, and I don't know if it's a right-wing. I know it's a liberal idea. And liberal sort of skirts the sort of edges between both of them.
Sure.
So I don't know. I don't know if I could wholeheartedly say that was, because the right side of politics has fucking hundreds of books and literature that preach their version of society, and the left has their version as well. So I don't know if you go far enough, it's not about knowledge anymore. Both sides, if you go far enough, it's not about learning, it's about, this is what we think society should be like. So again, sorry to be a fucking centrist, but I think that knowledge comes from a non-biased way of looking at the world. I think it's like wanting to learn. I don't think you can want to learn if you're to the far side of either wings of politics, because you'll only want to hear what your version of the dogma is.
And I think if you were born into a very, very far left society, it'd be a case essentially of, okay, you've been born to fulfill this very specific role in the workforce, and you will make this cog in this factory for the next 90 years until you die. Like, do you know what I mean? And then it's on the other side, I suppose. God, this is where my political idiocy comes through. But do you see the point I make? It becomes less about learning the further entrenched you get in a very far either way society.
And that's why, for me, it comes down to, not always, but I think that we should embrace collectivism at our peril, in my view. Because there are obviously problems that need to be solved collectively. Climate change, for example, we need everyone on board with that.
Yeah.
We can't sacrifice or martyr who we are as an individual in order to get the job done. I don't think it's worth it. Then
I think are you aware of the phenomenon of emergence?
No.
It's used in very scientific contexts to mean individually, ants are stupid. They do not really have a brain. They are essentially a robot. They carry out one function for the month that they are alive and then die. But you join together 1,000 ants in an ant colony, and they become very clever. They generate bridges and rafts and very complicated underground tunnels and stuff like that. And so the intelligence is an emergent property of them. And I think that similar things can come from as an emergent property of humanity.
Yes.
If you get 1,000 people together and say, right, work on curing cancer, work on solving climate change, work on whatever, the emergent property of their total intelligence will be greater than the sum of the sum of its parts, if that makes sense. So, but on the same level, it doesn't make sense because collectivism is prioritizing a group's need over the needs of the individuals within the group. Yes. And I agree with you that doesn't make much sense.
It's the biggest cause of death in history, arguably. Okay,
you're going to have to explain your steps on that one to me.
I mean,
I'm a bit slow this morning.
Collectivism has given rise to... It's only because of collectivism that racism exists, and fascism exists, and communism exists. These are all collective, primitive ways of thinking. It's about groups vying for power in a world, and who you are as an individual is irrelevant. It's not about what you believe, it's about what the group believes. And
I would argue that while those groups were founded as a result of a collectivist idea, their flaws are not flaws of collectivism, their flaws are flaws of the beliefs that tie them together.
Yeah, but I think collectivism is their fundamental beliefs that they wouldn't exist in the same way without collectivism, because racism is just a gross generalization of other people, and that is collectivism. Do you know what I mean? It's like black people are like this, white people are like that. It's like, no, we're all individuals with different ideas, and it's very useful for human beings to come together and work as a collective sometimes, and do very important things. I'm not disputing that at all, and we work well together, but we have to be individuals working together in order to get things done. Because if you're not an individual anymore, then what are you doing it for? What are you preserving? You become like the Borg. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if you just prioritize the collective needs of the group at all times, then you can justify doing horrible shit to individual people.
It's I guess the point you get to about that is yeah, well, we're going to cure cancer, but we have to kill 5 people every 10 minutes.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, okay, at what point does the cost outweigh the potential benefit? It's, don't get me wrong, curing cancer, great, let's work on that if we can, but on the same level, killing 10 people every 10 minutes, that doesn't seem like a sensible price to pay.
See when you get, like, a sort of... See when you can tell someone that a group of people behave all the same and think all the same, it's very easy to commit atrocities. That's why so many people in Germany thought that Nazism was right. It was fueled by fear, it was fueled by discontent, and the Nazis made the Jewish people into one sort of malignant entity that think...
Yeah, one big scapegoat.
Yes, exactly. And communism did the same with the rich. And so on and so on, and racists do the same with black people. It's just it's collectivism, in my view, that's the fundamental flaw with these ideologies.
I think you make an interesting point, but I also think that it's difficult to eliminate collectivism from the human psyche.
I definitely don't want that. I don't want that at all. But I...
No, don't. What I mean is, in that it's sort of geared into the human psyche to think, okay, well, all, like, even, I mean, I keep saying, oh, go back to caveman times, but, like, obviously, but, like, you go back to caveman times, you think, right, well, all animals that have brown fur are, in this part of the forest, all animals that have brown fur are safe to eat, and all animals that have blue fur are deadly to me, or whatever it might be. Because that's an evolutionary tactic to survive, to memorize large tracts of information through generalization. And I think that it's a human nature flaw to take collectivism too far and say, okay, well, in that case, all Germans are X, all French people are this. All, do you know what I mean?
I mean, that's, you know, like we said, it's like conflict is an insatiable part of human nature. You know, it's like human beings are flawed creatures that will often give in to instinct before thinking rationally. And
I'm curious to understand that saying more. When you say conflict is an intrinsic sort of desire of humans, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, throughout history, throughout, you know, our evolutionary path, you know, there has always been conflict over resources, over ways of thinking, and war is essentially just natural selection played out on a grand scale. It's all sort of relative, and I think that human beings definitely have, below the surface, a need for anger and for fighting.
I think
it's a flaw. I'm not
sure if I completely agree with you.
Well, yeah, I mean, fair enough.
I think that war itself is a war and conflict. It's a symptom of an underlying human desire to... You don't agree with me. Why can't you agree with me? It's an underlying symptom of anger rather than an innate thing that we have to give into. You can get angry and then you can say, right, okay, I'm not going to hit you in the face because you think different things than I do about whatever. Right. We're going to take 5 minutes, then we're going to come back in and we're going to outlaw clear Pepsi or whatever it might be.
But, like, you know, you know, if you go back far enough, then it's probably I think we've evolved to fight and to battle each other. Because
interestingly, I'm not sure I quite agree with you.
But it's
because I would say that humans are intrinsically social creatures, even to the extent of like that's the reason we tamed dogs, going back a million years to when we first tamed wolves and had them with us, is because it's an intrinsically social desire to say, right, well, we need help from others. We need everything.
We are social creatures, definitely. But I definitely believe. I mean, but war is just rife in history. War is like it's. You talk about history and you're talking about war. You can't really talk about history and not talk about war. War is just everywhere, and a lot of it is just pointless squabbling over places and resources, and it is futile, and I think it's a flaw that human beings have evolved to sort of that's embedded in us. I don't think it's overpowering. I don't think that we're just, that's it. We're just angry, selfish bastards, and that's all we can really do about it. I think that we can break free from it, but I definitely think that due to how cruel this world is and how, uncaring it is, we've evolved to prioritise conflict.
Okay, I'm going to say something that's going to make you angry now.
Okay.
Do you have a collectivistic view of war?
Oh, that's interesting.
In the sense of you speak about war in this great sense of there's loads of war. It's peppered throughout history. There's so much of it everywhere. But then you're doing what you criticised a few minutes ago. You're not saying, okay, well, this specific war was because of these specific factors. If you look into every war in history, I'm sure you could come up with a long list of, okay, these wars were probably kind of necessary. These people did kind of need access to this well, or whatever.
I conceded that the Second World War was necessary. I think we definitely needed to fight the Nazis. I'm not saying that all war is unjustified. I don't think that. But I think that there is. I don't think it's controversial to say there is a lot of war in history. No,
I know it's not. Yeah.
And I just maybe. Well, I mean, I'm a hypocrite, Lewis.
What's that Walt Whitman quote?
That's human.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do contradict myself, for I am a human. I contain multitudes.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
I understand that. Yeah, I was just curious about your stand on that, because you do.
It's a good point, though.
The way you spoke, yes, about war in a very generalistic sense. Yeah.
I mean, well, that's that. I think that, on the contrary, it further proves my point that collectivism is a bad thing, because I'm perpetuating it.
yeah, I suppose so. Okay, should we have another CRQ?
Yeah, go on.
I've got a good one. One of the issues with communism that is so often sort of cited in debates about it is that because people aren't getting paid different wages, there's no way to incentivize good work.
Yeah.
And the excuse that's often sort of led to with that is, well, places would be dirty, places would be in disrepair, because nobody is motivated to go and deal with them.
Mm-hmm.
So and Orwell makes a point about how the city is not in great shape.
Yeah.
Like, he talks about how the lift is broken in Winston's building, how it's filthy, it smells terrible. Is he trying to make a point about how this not quite communistic point of giving people jobs, is he trying to make a point about how that's a bad thing?
I mean, I don't think he did think communism was a good thing.
No, I don't. I mean, I feel like I should just say I do not believe communism is a good thing.
No, I mean, well, the complete, the opposite of communism is fascism, and communism has always sounded better on paper.
Yes, yeah.
Both of them put together, two definitions, you're probably going to go with communism at first glance.
If you had to pick one.
Yeah, but, again...
Would you rather live in a communist society?
I think he was making I don't know if he was making a point that communism is bad. But, again, I don't think human beings have evolved to accept a communist utopia. I don't think we're made for it. I don't think we could genuinely sustain a society where everything is equal. And no one gets more than anyone else. There would be some person who would be like, wait a minute, why am I getting the same?
I'm a brain surgeon. Why am I getting the same as that strictly or whatever? Yeah,
exactly. And it's a nice dream, but I don't think it would ever come about.
Although I do think it's like how it happened in Russia and in China, I do believe, to some extent. I think it's one of those experiments that does need to happen. Like I was talking about the American experiment that resulted in a powerful nation. I think the communist experiment, it's one of those things that if it hadn't have happened with Russia and China, it would have happened somewhere else. Yeah. It's one of those things that it's an experiment that sort of needs to be done to test human nature. Yeah.
Well, it's never.
And don't get me wrong; it's not exactly very moral. It's not a kind thing to do.
So maybe it's like you learn from falling, Like some lessons have to be learned, even though they're painful.
Yes, yeah.
You know, I mean, but again, with the whole sort of maybe sit down and talk type thing, I think that because of discontent and a number of other factors, you know, communism or the belief in communism, you know, led to the death of, you know, 20 million in Russia. 60 million in China. It's like Stalin said that one death is a tragedy, 1 million is a statistic, and he is right. It's infeasible to think of 60
it's an unconscionable number.
Yeah, exactly.
What is there in London? Like 8 million people? It's like just less than 10 times that. It's like you say, you can't. It's too big a number for a human brain to understand.
Yes.
It's like one of the issues I find in day-to-day life is that when someone says, okay, next year this is happening, so that doesn't mean anything to me.
Yeah.
If it's not within the next 3 months, I can't visualise it or understand it.
Do you know how much can change in a year?
I suppose so, yeah.
You know, it's just fucking Jesus. But I agree that I think we had to learn that, yeah, let's not do that. But communism hasn't happened.
No, true communism, true. If you made it proper. No, but I think that's almost a sort of human nature flaw.
Yeah.
In that, you will always sort of almost desire a leader. Yes. In the sense of like in a communist society, there needs to be someone who is a leader.
Yeah.
Because that's just the nature of society. There needs to be someone telling everybody else what to do, and whether you make it a scapegoat, a figurehead leader, or a council, which might be more of a communistic way of doing things, that is something that needs to be in any society.
Yeah, I mean, the way that Marx wanted communism to come about and how it would be done, I'm surprised that he didn't sort of put two and two together. You know, wait a minute, you want to give the state full control of the country in order to safeguard the revolution. You don't think that a bad guy with bad intentions could possibly come in and just say, no, I'm never giving up my power? That's exactly what happened. Lenin didn't want Stalin as head of the party, or the general secretary, I should say. He wanted Trotsky, but Stalin intervened and exiled Trotsky. And obviously, all the bad shit happened. I don't know if it would have. I think it would have been different, because Stalin wanted communism only in Russia. Trotsky wanted a worldwide revolution.
Sure.
So I think Trotsky was more democratic than Stalin. But you know, getting to communism is not something that was made to seem nice. It's based on blood and death and a purge. You know, those are necessary for someone who believes in communism. And is it a price worth paying? No, I don't think so.
Good stuff.
But that's just me. That's just me, folks.
Do you have another CRQ?
I do.
It's a bumper extra long episode, this one.
I know it's going to be a long one. Are intellectuals overrated?
How do you mean?
Because George Orwell didn't like intellectuals. He thought that they were snobbish and pretentious, and he found ordinary people, like sort of little Yorkshire towns, and just sort of menial ways of living. He found that far more interesting than the sort of snobbish sort of So
I'm still not sure what you mean by intellectuals. Do you mean as in like professors at universities, things like that?
Well, I mean, I'm doing that collectivist thing again.
Well, yeah.
Well, I suppose what's your definition of an intellectual?
Someone who is intellectual about stuff. I think anybody can sort of be an intellectual to some extent. I think that
because I think the problem that Orwell had is that immediately when you think about it, it comes across as a sort of upper class, sort of hooty-fatooty sort of way of thinking.
Yeah.
So maybe that brand of intellectual, is that overrated?
The brand of people that are study their whole lives and are very rich and...
Yes, and sort of come up with these ideas without really sort of putting them into practice and say, yep, that'll work.
Oh, okay, yes, now I understand what you mean. Yeah, that is overrated. Because, I would say so anyway, because it's like... I think there are lots of problems that you can't understand unless you actually experience them.
Yes.
Like, I understand from a text, like I've read it in a textbook. I understand things about racism or homophobia, but I have not experienced them, so I cannot truly say that I understand them.
Yeah.
I think that's the problem with like representation in politics and stuff, is why are people making decisions for big groups of people when they are not a member of that group of people?
Oh, we're getting into the collectivist again, Lewis.
Oh, we are a bit, aren't we?
Well, see. For me, the way I look at it is that I know that this is it's foolish to pretend that race and gender and sex and orientation that they have no bearing over society. I wish that they didn't, but they do. But the way I see it, I would never vote for someone based on an artificial characteristic like that.
Okay.
I only vote for what they believe in. You know, it's like when seeing people say, "Oh, you vote for Hillary because I want a female in the Oval Office." Yes, there should be female presidents, but Hillary Clinton is probably not a very good candidate. If Bernie was chosen instead, I think that would have been a better bet. If you're an arsehole, you're an arsehole. It doesn't have any bearing on whether you're a woman or not. Do you know what I mean?
I think this is one of the things I loathe about this celebrity politician culture is it's in an election it becomes almost an emotional judgment that people make.
Yes.
Even down to who do you like? I like this person. I like this person. That isn't what it really should be about.
It's what you look at in.
Yeah, you look at, say, the top three frontrunners of, I don't know, Labour, Tories, and what's the other one? Liberal Democrats.
Lib Dems, yeah.
There's a fighting chance that if I met all three of those people, I wouldn't like any of them.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You have a conversation with Boris Johnson, you think, no, I don't like him very much. You have a conversation with Jeremy Corbyn, well, I don't really like him very much either. But then you have to look at the list of...
Swinson.
I mean, probably I wouldn't like her either, but I don't really know anything about her.
Yeah.
But then you have to sort of look at their list of policies and think, okay, well, Johnson wants to do these things, Corbyn wants to do these things, Swinson wants to do these things. That's what you should be making your decision on. Yes. Not like a few years ago, there was that whole uproar, people saying, Jeremy Corbyn wearing a tracksuit in wherever. It's like, well, does that matter? Yes. Why am I supposed to give a shit about that? Yes. That's not important to his policy making or his abilities as a politician.
Oh no, I agree completely. I remember seeing something like a few people voted for Ronald Reagan because they thought he was good looking. It's like shit like that. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean? It really is. But then the issue with this culture is where the lines get blurred. When your policies are emotional policies, that's where the issue comes. In the sense of I'm going to say this, but it's because it's the only example I can think of. Like the whole Trump "Make America Great Again." That was like his big thing, right?
Yep.
That was what he got elected on. In so many people would argue that, but that's an emotional statement.
Yes, very much.
Because it's not like he's saying, okay, I want to denationalize the water grid. I don't know if it is nationalized in America, but if that's what he was saying, want to defederalize the road maintenance network or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That's a policy. That's something he wants to do. But I want to make America great again. Okay, well, let's analyze that statement for a second. What does that actually mean? What if you say I want to do that? What?
In his view, America is not great at the moment, so he is going to do what exactly to make?
Exactly.
But politics has become, it's just buzzwords and phrases and slogans. It's Guess what it is, Lewis? Can you guess?
Is it collectivism, Danny?
It's collectivism! That's exactly what it is. What a fucking stupid general thing to say. I'm going to make America great again. And that was
one of the things
what does that mean? What are you going to do? Tell me what you're going to do.
That's one thing I do admire when you see a politician stand up and talk about their manifesto or whatever, and they actually do list things they're going to do.
Yes.
Even if they don't do them, it's like, well, at least you've got a fucking list.
Yeah.
Most of those other people aren't got a list. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Get a list. That's how you get me to vote for you. Get solid list.
Get a list.
Even if it's just like, buy crumpets. I don't give a shit. Have a list.
Yes, just tell us what you're going to do.
Getting very angry about lists now, which could well be the title of my autobiography.
I remember seeing something on Would I Lie to You, and Rob Brydon's giving it a list, and
right,
he's like, and Frankie Boyle is like, he says, that's a very specific list of things, and Rob Brydon's like, yes, Frankie, that's why it's called a list.
I do like Rob Brydon. I went to see Rob Brydon live, and he was brilliant. Like, his set was absolutely brilliant.
Did he sing?
He did sing, actually, yeah.
Of course
he did a few Elvis songs, which was quite surreal, and he got his guitar out at the end, and he said, okay, I've got about 10 minutes left on stage. You got any questions, and I'll answer them? And they talked about Gavin and Stacey a bit, and then, because obviously in Stoke, the song, Christ knows I know nothing about football, but the song of Stoke City FC is is it Delilah? I think it's just the title.
Yeah.
But that old Tom Jones song. So they shouted at him, "Sing that song! Sing that song!" And he got his guitar out and started singing it. And it was bizarre, but also quite brilliant in a strange way.
Yeah, definitely.
And he went off stage, and I mean, I hate this whole encore culture. Like, no, come on stage, do your bit, and then go.
Yeah. No, come back!
He went off stage and it was like, encore, and he came back on in like a full Elvis get-up with like the hair and the white suit, like with like low cut down to his belly button and all that sort of stuff. And he did a couple of Elvis songs. It was really surreal, but also hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the Gavin and Stacey Christmas special as well, speaking of Rob Brydon.
So am I. It looks pretty good.
I wonder how many collectivist themes that'll have in it.
I love talking about Rob Brydon, but we've got collectivism to talk about, Lewis, okay? Is 1984 now a tool for authoritarianism?
A tool for authoritarianism?
Yeah.
How do you mean? Because it's not exactly a authoritarian poster boy, is it?
No.
It's quite clearly against authoritarianism.
Definitely, but couldn't groups use its non-partisan nature to say, look, this is what'll happen if you join Labour. Oh, and
that's true. That's true.
And equally on the other side, it's even though it's a warning, it could easily just be used as propaganda for groups.
Well, yeah, I suppose it's because of the sort of political spectrum. It's like extremely far left is almost indistinguishable from extremely far right.
Yes.
And so, looking at the book, you could argue it either way. This is a very far left society. This is a very far right society. You could argue it either way.
Yes. I've got one more question.
Okay.
And then I want to read my favourite passage from the book, if that's all right.
Okay, but I would like you to do it in a funny accent, please.
Okay.
Go on. What's the question, man?
Should some thoughts be policed?
Oh.
The easiest question on the world.
It's like no knowledge should be forbidden, only certain practices. In the sense of, like, it's okay to think different things, but the point at which you start, like,
doing
right,
that.
well, I think we should get rid of these whoever's and go out into the street and start killing them. That's the point at which it becomes a problem. Like, knowledge and thoughts, you shouldn't really forbid that, because that's like a human right. That's a human nature type thing, is to think contrary things, or to think things that are in line with what everybody else thinks. So to outlaw that is to deny a human nature thing, which is like, do you know what I mean?
Yes, definitely, I agree with you. Psych, I've got another question.
Okay, go on.
In a worst case scenario, what is more desirable? Absolute freedom or absolute equality?
I after thinking about it for less than 10 seconds, I would go with absolute equality, probably. Because absolute freedom, people would abuse that. I think that if you told them...
You don't think
I'm not sure, because
you think
because
people wouldn't abuse absolute equality?
Well, I think that it's harder.
You wouldn't be able to do anything.
That's true, but I think the point I'm trying to make is, like, I'm not sure. Because I'm sort of innately optimistic about humanity as a concept. I'm innately sort of thinking, yeah, humans are intrinsically good people. Humans are intrinsically have a sort of a positive moral compass. And don't get me wrong, you have anomalies and you have, like, the Hitlers. But, like, I think innately, humans tend towards good. And I think that, so theoretically, if what I said was true, then an absolute free society, they would tend towards good.
Yeah.
And in an absolute equality society, they would tend towards good. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But of course, you do have the Hitlers. so if you just select 100 random people from the world and say, right, you're in an absolute free society, there is a non-zero chance that there will be a Hitler. And he'll be like, right, well, everybody line up by your skin colour and I'll start shooting.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And if you line up in an absolute equality society and there's a little Hitler in there somewhere as well, do you know what I mean? It's impossible to pick between the two because they both have very intrinsic flaws.
Yes. I mean, it's a different sort of question, but like Ricky Gervais was once asked, what's better, something that's too salty or too sweet, and he says it doesn't matter that if it's too anything, it's shit.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true.
So that's the way I look at it. It's like there's not really a right answer because they're both shite. So that is all my questions.
I have one last question. Is Winston and Julia's relationship impetuous, or is it simply human nature?
I don't know what impetuous means.
Doing something on a whim because you can.
I think it's probably a mixture of both, because I think it's solidifying their sort of rebellion. You know, I don't think it's because you're a man and I'm a woman. I think it's more about fuck the party, and I'm going to do this because, you know, I want to, and it's an act of rebellion.
Because that's sort of the cornerstone of their rebellion is their relationship.
Yes.
Do you have a closing statement?
I'm going to read my favourite passage first, Lewis.
Oh, of course, yeah.
As agreed. Jesus. I think this is the most chilling passage in a book I've ever read.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll do it in a very scary RP accent, right?
Right, okay.
How does one man assert his power over another, Winston? Winston thought. By making him suffer, he said. Exactly. By making him suffer. Obedience is not enough. Unless he is suffering, how can you be sure that he is obeying your will and not his own? Power is inflicting pain and humiliation. Power is tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together in new shapes of your own choosing. Do you begin to see then what kind of world we are creating? It is the exact opposite of the stupid hedonistic utopias that the old reformers imagined. A world of fear and treachery and torment, a world of trampling and being trampled upon, a world which will grow not less but more merciless as it refines itself. Progress in our world will be progress towards more pain. The old civilizations claimed that they were founded on love or justice. Ours is founded upon hatred. In our world there will be no emotions except fear, rage, triumph, and self-abasement. Everything else we shall destroy. Already we are breaking down the habits of thought which have survived from before the revolution. We have cut the links between child and parent, and between man, and between man and woman. No one dares trust a wife or a child or a friend any longer. But in the future there will be no wives, and no friends. Children will be taken from their mothers at birth, as one takes eggs from a hen. The sex instinct will be eradicated. Procreation will be an annual formality like the renewal of a ration card. We shall abolish the orgasm. Our neurologists are at work upon it now. There will be no loyalty except loyalty to the party. There will be no love except the love of Big Brother. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever.
I think the thing that makes that so horrendously disgusting is he's admitting he's not doing it for personal gain, he's doing it for power. Yes. He's doing it because he wants to do it, which is so horrible, right?
See, when I read that for the first time, I was fucking terrified. What a chilling and ugly thing to say. Just, can you imagine someone who thinks like that? That wants that reality to come about, where there is just no joy. Just everything is about winning and killing and loving something that's just so much better than you. And that's all you are.
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell. What a book, by the way. What a book.
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, it took me ages to get through it. I remember reading it over the summer once, and it took me like 3 months to read this book.
Yeah.
I'd sit down and try and read it for half an hour every night, and I would invariably be falling asleep because it's just so dense. But it's a brilliant book.
It is a brilliant book. Okay, have you got a closing statement?
I do. A bleak book that leaves me hopeful about the nature of humanity relative to horrible regimes like this. A bleak ending which somehow gives a positive message.
There you go. I mean,
do you have a closing statement?
Well, see, just before that, see if you look at the back of the book and the dictionary of Newspeak and the principles of it. It speaks in the past tense, which suggests that it's a historian speaking, eons in the future.
Well, that is good then.
Which is a hopeful, uplifting sort of thing.
That gives it the spin that it's like Captain Picard or someone has written this book chronicling an ancient society.
Exactly. I mean, at their extreme, at its extreme, collectivism is a dangerous and consequential, and not to mention primitive way of thinking. It enables and has enabled racism, sexism, fascism, communism, totalitarianism, every ism that you can think of that has led us to death and hatred. It's useful to look at problems collectively sometimes, but I believe that the individual is more important. The factions that you are born into or subscribe to pale in comparison to who you are as a person. Superficial character traits such as race, gender, orientation should be irrelevant, but sadly they are not. These groups do not care who you are and will use individuals to perpetuate their policies and messages, but it's important to remember that individuals make up collectives, not the other way around. They need us more than we need them. Of course there are issues that need to be tackled collectively, but you have to be you when you tackle them. Celebrate the uniqueness of us all and don't allow tribes to use you up as a mere cell holding up its flawed, hypocritical organism.
Okay.
And that's my closing statement. It's not really about the book, but
it's a very small political tirade.
Yes, it certainly is, and I apologise.
I think no, I understand what you're saying about collectivism. I think good to a point. It's good to the point of the point where it starts becoming destructive.
Yes.
Let's get 100 scientists together. So everything in moderation that's the thing you always say, isn't it?
It certainly is, and you'll find that with most things. It's probably not a good idea to go to the fucking extreme. It's called the extreme for a reason.
Yeah.
You enjoying your burger? Yeah, I'm going to eat 16 million more. Okay.
Okay, Timmy.
Well, that was 1984.
It was 1984.
It was. What a great year.
And how chilling that 1984. There's that passage in the book where he just briefly goes, I think it's 1984.
Yeah.
I mean, it might not be, but I think it is.
Fucking hell. Jesus. Well, if you don't like politics, we're sorry that you
had to sit through this one.
You had to sit through that one, but these conversations are very interesting and very important. So,
well, Danny, what are we doing next week?
Okay. Oh, did I get to say? Okay. We're doing a great film called The Shawshank Redemption.
My favourite film. Well, one of. I have lots of favourite films.
Wow, what a non-statement. It's my favourite film. Well, one of them. I have lots of favourite films.
No, I think this is probably of the film some of my favourite films. This is probably like my favourite proper film, if that makes sense. Like this is, I feel like it's won Oscars and stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's like a proper film.
Yeah,
it's like cinema. Yeah,
definitely. So yeah, we shall see you then for that.
We shall see you then. Thank you very much for listening to this extra special, extra long, hour and a half long episode of Shouting into the Void, where we talk about politics.
Whew.
And Rob Brydon, briefly.
And Rob Brydon. He got a wee mention. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.